Okay, so today we're going to go over our last section of History of Theater, Musical Theater, and we're going to be doing a musical theater web class this week, and then we're going to actually watch some musicals. We could spend an entire semester just talking about the history of musical theater, just like we could spend an entire semester just talking about the history of theater. So the history of musical theater is going to somewhat parallel the history of theater during that time period, except musicals is going to develop a little differently. So the styles are still going to be the same. You're still going to see realism. You're still going to see Renaissance. But how that portrays in a musical will be a little bit different. So we're going to go over some basic musical theater history when musical theater actually got started, some famous playwrights, and then we're going to be watching some plays by those playwrights so you get a sense of different playwrights. And then we're going to do a web quest so you can find out more information about musical theater. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is watch a brief history of musicals. So find this clip on YouTube or click on this link here. Okay, so musicals are the most popular form of theatrical entertainment. Especially recently, there's been a recent resurge of musicals. So we've seen a lot of musicals become movies like the last 5 years and Into the Woods. And we've also seen, surprisingly, a lot of live musicals on TV lately, which has been really great. So musicals have started to become popular again. And people have even taken movies and made them into musicals. So we start seeing like Legally Blonde the musical and Matilda the musical. So musicals are definitely starting to become popular again, which is great. The live theater performance of Grease on television makes it so that a lot of people can go see a live theater performance and not have to worry about the cost or actually going anywhere. Musical tells a story through the combination of spoken words, which is dialogue, song, and dance. The first musical appeared in the United States in the mid-1800s, and the first musical was The Black Crook. George M. Cohan is the first magical American-born musical composer. During this time, music from Broadway musicals was considered the popular music of the time and what was being played on the radio. So today, while there might be like a show tunes section of the radio, during that time, musicals were the songs that were on the radio. And certain artists would even write songs specifically for the radio and then throw them into their musicals, even though it didn't necessarily make sense in the context of the song. So, for example, the musical Kiss Me Kate, there's a song Too Darn Hot at the beginning of the second act. It doesn't really make any sense in context with the play itself, but Cole Porter wanted to write the song, so in order to do so, he put it on his musical since that's what was popular during the time period. It's very interesting that musicals were dominant and songwriters would even write songs to put in their musicals that didn't make sense just so they would get airplay on the radio. Showboat is one of the first most important musicals ever written because it was the first to deal with serious subject matters and it was the first to be done in a realistic manner. So before this, musicals were more of like a romanticism era type thing where they romanticized what life was like, but then they started to transition to realism with Showboat. Oklahoma was the first to present the musical as a unified combination of music, words, and dance that flowed with seamless transitions to tell the story. So before Oklahoma, it was more, okay, we have our dialogue, then we're going to have a musical section, and we'll have dance. It wasn't a seamless transition to tell a story. Oklahoma was the first to do this. And this presentation is still the precedent for the manner in which musicals are presented today. So some important people to note is Rodgers and Hammerstein, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and Stephen Sondheim. They're all three main important players, and they all have a very different style. Rodgers and Hammerstein has a lot of popular musicals like Cinderella and Carousel, and they deal with serious subject matter sometimes, but they have a lot of lighthearted, fluffy type of songs. Andrew Lloyd Webber is probably one of the most popular musical composers, producers right now. He's known for Cats and Jesus Christ Superstar and Phantom of the Opera, a lot of really popular musicals. And then Stephen Sondheim has a darker take on musicals, so his musicals are not going to be light and fluffy. They're going to be more dark musicals. So think of like Sweeney Todd, Sunday in the Park with George. He writes some more dark type of musicals. Now we also see transitions from beautiful singing to sing shows to rock-based musicals with more intense subject matter. So lately, people have even been making musicals out of an entire artist compilation or music during like a certain time period. So you see Rock of Ages, which is a musical based on 80s rock and the incorporation of 80s rock. And you also see American Idiot, which takes the American Idiot album by Green Day and turns it into a musical. So it uses the songs, but in a sense that would make sense in a story type format. Okay, so these are our choice of musicals we're going to be able to watch. We can choose of about 4, so we're going to vote as a class. We definitely want to get a good mix of musicals. We don't have time to watch every single one of them, so we're going to vote together. So our choices are going to be The Sound of Music, Les Miserables, Singing in the Rain, The Phantom of the Opera, Into the Woods, Meet Me in St. Louis, West Side Story, The King and I, The Last 5 Years, and Shrek the Musical. Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit of information about your musical theater web quest with you, and then we'll be getting started on that. So you have 10 questions to answer, so you're going to go to Google and try to find the answer to these questions and really look at these because these are going to be your overview of musical theater and go through a little bit more in depth about musical theater.